Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Eason here with life coach and psychic medium, oh boy, did I screw that one up. The military medium, Dean McMurray.
You know who I am. That's all right.
I knew who you were. They just didn't know who you were. That's all. Let's try that again. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Eason here with the military medium, Dean McMurray. How's that? Was that better? Yeah, that was good.
That
works. Anyway, this is your daily dose of happy, and we're so happy to decide to join us today. And we had a couple of emails this past week, Dean, from people wondering about last week's show.
Sure.
And another one asking for some help this week. And the first one, and I have to thank this particular listener because this listener did something that I asked previously. I had an interesting and rather embarrassing incident a couple of weeks ago in which I read a really nice email, really great email from a listener. And at the very end, the listener said, please don't mention me on the show. It's like, oh. So I said, please put that at the top of the email. Well, this particular listener said, please don't use my name. Please don't use my name.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, so, put it in the beginning, right?
That's right. So thank you, listener. Appreciate that. But the listener says, wow, what a great episode with you and Dean on the 2nd last week. Thank you. Yes, you resonated with at least one loyal listener. The cumulative effect of verbal/psychological abuse is real, as you discussed. Imagine all you went through and being a naive young person 3 days away from a wedding and not pulling out of the relationship. Yeah. The family pressure to the social event and financial commitment of having a big show wedding was so intimidating that although I clearly heard all the signals and red lights, I still walked the aisle. Disastrous from the get-go, but people say in terrible business relationships or marriages out of duty or loyalty to others above themselves. Obviously, a lack of self-love going on there. Fortunately, Walt, you recognize that you were trying to save/rescue/guide this potential business partner away from his own learned abusive behavior. But we can only do so much. There comes a point we have to walk as you did because he wasn't respecting the boundaries you set. Fortunately, you were mature enough to recognize and advanced enough in your self-love journey to confront instead of being dragged down their cesspool of abuse. Typically, these people are miserable with themselves or need to vent the anger they have bottled up. And if you don't protect yourself, no one else will because you are the only one completely experiencing it. It's the most difficult position to be in and the one that creates the most growth. Great point. I'm thankful you caught yourself in time to avoid a disastrous business relationship. So am I, mystery email writer. I agree with you completely. Please, please, please keep teaching self-love because if a person has enough built up, they only have the confidence to not only listen to their gut when warning signs are blaring, but also to act on those warning signs. Yes. In fact, I'm going to steal that phrase. That's exactly what it's all about. It's not only knowing how to put up the boundaries, it's knowing how to act on the boundaries. Yeah, that's big. And this is definitely the information young people need to learn so you don't take a lifetime analyzing and recovering from the abuse. It's an interesting point. I spent a lifetime not recovering from abuse, but learning how all this stuff worked. And it's something that Joel and Elston and I have talked about a lot, Dean, and that is you go through crap and you don't really want to go through it again, but boy, was it worth it the first time. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, you learn a lot of great lessons within that journey, right?
Exactly.
You know, or at least you hope you did. Sometimes you're just like, oh my God, I barely lived through that. And it's
true. Yeah.
Sometimes it's feel so beat up. Sometimes, trying to pull the message or the, how do I want to call it? The learning event from whatever you went through can be challenging sometimes.
It is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, it's, they had an old adage in the army. Well, at least they used to tell me anyways, maybe I was one of the hard-headed ones. And they said, McMurray, there's 2 types of soldiers, smart soldiers and strong soldiers, meaning when you mess up, you're going to be doing push-ups, you're going to be doing corrective, and you really got to decide which one you want to be. Do you want to learn so you're not always doing it the hard way, or are you gonna, one of the ones that needs to be dragged through the mud, so to speak? Do we need to learn the hard way or the easy way?
Interesting
But
thing is you don't have to go to boot camp in order to have that experience. That's what's really
no,
interesting about
you
it.
can have it right in the comfort of your own home.
You
And
can.
what and we're certainly not perpetuating that at any point, but just bringing attention to it. But it's why keep reliving it? Why keep on having that experience? And it's not about judgment. It's just about awareness.
Yes.
And about where you are at, and like, holy crap, I've been in the same cycle for maybe years, maybe since you're very young, whatever. So yeah,
No doubt about it. And as I was actually thinking about this earlier today. I mentioned to you before the recording of the podcast that we're having gorgeous weather here in Connecticut today, which is pretty unusual for early March, but we're up in the 60s, which is just mind blowing.
Right.
So I had to get out to get my first walk into the season and get out and breathe this fresh air, get out of the lockdown situation. Well, not really lockdown, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And
get out.
it was in that frame of mind where I started thinking about my own journey and the stuff that I've gone through in my life and how it has made me who I am today. And I'm not sure that I really needed to go through the boot camp part of it, but on the other hand, I did get a lot out of it, and it's made it possible for me to be an educated host doing a podcast. It's enabled me to consider doing and start. Actually, I'm getting ready to start, I hope, doing a public speaking career. And it's enabled me to help people who have been in similar situations or are currently in a similar situation right now and having trouble to get out of it. So, yeah. I guess on balance, it was worth it.
I think if we dig through any situation deep enough, and really do a self-reflection of it, we could find something to be grateful for, even if it was difficult. And saying, I did learn something in that, or, it did shape, who I am today, or it made me learn, in a sense, maybe out of survival or whatever the reason, of some of the ways that I react now, or that the ways that I deal with, lack of self-love, or, whatever comes up in that aspect. And so then you're able to move to a place to be able to help others instead of feeling helpless. So you've already walked that journey once. Not saying that we don't at times walk it again, but it becomes so much easier, right? It's like, oh, I've been in this place before. It's not a big deal. We just move through it and done. It's not a life set. I think I posted something the other day about something about I think it was actually yesterday, something about a life sentence. It was actually my Monday messages from Spirit. And one of them was, the aspect about, your past actions and stuff doesn't have to be a life sentence. And really the person that's sentencing you to is yourself. That's the sad thing.
Oof, yeah.
We just, we are the, we're so bad at it.
Or good at it, depending on your perspective.
Well, right. But yeah, I guess if you wanted to put that aspect on it, but yeah, we just hammer ourselves over and over again about, past actions, things that we didn't do or did. And, it's really not meant to be a life sentence. It's about learning events.
And I think that's part of what I was thinking about, because it wasn't like I wasn't looking for answers throughout that time. I just wasn't finding them.
Right.
And that could be a whole conversation all by itself about why that was happening. But I was looking, I was trying things, and I was I was actually working very accurately and consistently and directly in the opposite direction of where I needed to go. I mean, I was really good at going in the wrong direction, like 180 degrees. It took me a long time to realize this isn't working. Why isn't this working? This should work, and it's not working. Well, okay, about face.
Right. You just move in the other direction, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sometimes it takes a while to figure that out.
It
It
does.
does. But that's a really beautiful story that
It is.
the listener shared, and thank you for sharing that, because not only does it take courage to, I mean, I know that you're anonymous, but to really share your story, and so thank you for that. And
Yeah.
so
Well, we also have another email, and this one may take us a while to give help. Let's put it that way. There's a not a lot in it, but there's some in there to dissect. So let's see if we can help this person out. This is another regular listener. This is from Daniel, writing about his mother-in-law, actually on behalf of his mother-in-law. So he says, my mother-in-law, Vickie, wanted me to send in a question for Dean. She doesn't have internet access and barely a cell signal where she lives. So I told her I would send it for her. Right now, she is about early retirement age, and she is having trouble seeing any path toward being in a healthy financial situation.
okay.
She wanted to ask me, quote, if they see any path choices for me ahead financially, and if I will have any serious health issues, unquote. She told me that she had just got a bunch of tests run this morning and has more later this week. She also doesn't know how she is going to survive and be independent. And I don't know if this is relevant, but I'm trying to fill in as much as I know. We are looking into making a tiny home out of our garage for her as an option. Her birthday is Saturday, and we are in the process of moving her to a temporary house. So any information will help. Thank you. And I know she enjoys the show when she can watch it.
Well, nice. And well, first off, I would say, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes, and she shares birthday month. I'm also a Pisces, so go Pisces, right?
You and my brother.
Yeah. But what I would share is, the thing that got me, first off, a lot going on. And a lot of people right along the same, in similar situations out there. First off, though, is, I was really caught on the words of, she was really, I think the way that you read it, Walt, was really couldn't see any, basically talking about financial freedom, really,
Right.
not seeing a way out.
She's having trouble seeing a path toward being in a financial
so there
situation.
You go.
Yeah.
And kind of, in the proverbial hole, so to speak, you can't see the path out. One of the first things that I would share is, not saying that, it's, not difficult, but what I'm also saying is, first off, that something that you can control is your mindset. When everything else is kind of failing around you, so to speak, which you can control, start looking at what you can control. If things are kind of beyond your control, saying, okay, well, there's a real deficit in the bank account, there's a cash flow issue, there's bills due. I get that. But what can you control currently at this point? And number one, that comes to your thoughts and your mindset. Doesn't matter where you are. You could be outside, you could be at somebody's home, whatever, and really start shifting your mindset around not only money, but your health. And even if things are physically completely the opposite from where you want to be right now, you need to start looking and putting things in the narrative that they're already to the positive, saying I'm grateful, I'm happy, as far as the abundance in your life, and talking about everything going. But the thing that I would share for her is that this also goes not only to the abundance piece, but also talking about health, right? And so when we talk about that, is really how we talk to ourselves. And so if you're asking me psychically, where do I see things? I would really love to be optimistic and say, ooh, I really feel it changing, but I don't. It's going to take some time to get out of this one, I feel. However, here's what I'm going to say about energy. However, you are in control. So just because Dean McMurray, the psychic medium, says I don't feel it changing for quite some time or some time, it can change tomorrow, because you are the author of your story. You are the creator. And so if you kind of take control and charge, so to speak, of saying, now, dang it, we're going to change this narrative. So if it's, I think his name is Daniel. Was it Daniel?
Yes.
So Daniel was talking about in the process of building her a tiny home, and maybe moving her into the garage, was it? Or building a tiny home in the garage, right?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, so whatever you need to change to help, that's great. I think that's awesome. Family rallying around and helping out where they can. That's beautiful. What really will help tremendously as well is, in the meantime, between those things coming to fruition, is working on the mindset, working on them. And I think we've talked about this before too, Walt, is, let's take the flip side of this situation. And we've talked about people that win at the lottery, I believe it was, and people that get millions of dollars and quite literally overnight become millionaires.
Yeah.
And really, because of the mindset, there is a lack mindset, that they can't maintain the frequency of the energy that they have now, saying, oh my God, I have all this money. And, yeah, I get it. People spend it, quite honestly, but they don't use it to help themselves, in a sense, meaning they only use it one way. And really, when you think about it, money is really energy, and it's a tool. And so when we take the emotion out of money, really it just becomes a piece of paper that helps us attain services or goods, and saying, it should not control us. And so often it does. And I get it. You got to pay bills. You gotta eat. I get that piece. And it takes money in today's society, whether it's digital format or whatever. But the thing that I would share is that, sometimes too, is shifting mindset is something that is in your wheelhouse right now. And really, that's huge when it comes to health too. If saying, even if you're handed a challenging health outlook, a chronic illness, maybe diseases, whatever, saying, we can still control how we show up each and every day. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm moving forward, whatever that is. I'm abundant, I'm happy, I'm healthy. And really, when you start moving, kind of like Walt, you talk about the self-love project, right? And starting off in the beginning, when you look at yourself and you're saying these affirmations, and at first you don't believe yourself, but then over time you start believing yourself. And thereby believing yourself, you're shifting the entire consciousness and the vibration around everything else. And thereby your physical reality starts to shift. Once you start really aligning with that vibration, it's like, you start showing up differently. Does the body, when you start really believing that you're healing, or that you're, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm abundant, a lot of these different things. And I get it, that at the same time as, still might be there still might be a bit of a struggle there financially, but it doesn't mean that you're not abundant. Abundance can mean a lot more than just money, because we always put, every time anybody says abundance, they automatically go to money, and it's not always the case. Abundance has more to do with vibration and frequency than it does the physical, actual, tangible dollar bill that you hold in your hand, right? But abundance also is abundant in friendship, relationships, maybe it's other things within your life. but to be
And in health too. I mean, she
and
mentioned the
health,
health issue.
yes.
I mean, that's a huge piece of
Yes,
abundance right
health
there.
is huge. I mean, health is wealth. There's a saying, to be wealthy could be health. You can't take money with you to the grave, but you're going to avoid, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
longevity has everything to do with your health and your physical well-being. So, so there's so many avenues of it, but I would say start, and I know it sounds simple, but start with mindset. And we've talked about this over and over and over again, but that's what you can control right now. And yes, everything else is going on behind the scenes. You're changing maybe the way that you're living and spending habits and building this tiny home, and everything else is going on. Everybody's rallying to support her, but at the same time doing the work. So when you step into that new chapter of your life, you can do so with a fresh set of shoes, so to speak, and give a new outlook on that. So I guess that would be my 2 cents.
That's
Start
really
with
good.
mindset, and then go from there. It's a one day at a time type deal. You might take 1 step forward and 5 steps back, and just keep on keeping on each day. Do it again. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Right? There was a saying. I can't even remember who was saying that, but they would say it as they go down an elevator, and just so they get it done. Don't procrastinate. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that is, just do it. Just forward. Take 1 step forward.
That's right.
But
good stuff. I like that. I have a few things I can add to it.
Yes.
First thing that comes to my mind is, if you have not already gotten a copy of the LOA Today app for whatever device you use, Vickie, download it. Daniel, help her get it. And the reason I say that is the ebook that we just added, 55 different manifestation stories. The last one is the one I recommend for you. It's the one that Louise and I wrote together. And it's the story of our life experience that commenced. In this case, the story started in the summer of 2013, and the story continued until late spring and summer of 2014. And it's really been an ongoing story ever since. Now, there's 2 things I want to tell you about that are really critical for you to understand. The first is, we were deeply, deeply in debt at the beginning of the story. We were deeply, deeply in debt at the end of the story. So while you'll see in the story that a great deal of abundance occurred out of thin air, seemingly, we weren't out of debt yet. And Dean, that was 7 years ago. I'm really excited to say we're going to be out of debt this May.
That's so cool.
I mean, it took 7 years, but we got here.
And I love the fact, Walt, that you shared that and brought the correlation to, in the beginning of the story, you were deeply in debt. And at the end of the story, you were deeply in debt.
Exactly.
But that doesn't negate the fact that you really move mountains, and really created a tremendous amount of abundance. But that still doesn't mean that it doesn't mean all of a sudden now that you're the next Jeff Bezos, right? It doesn't mean that,
no.
Right?
Working on it, but not quite.
But you know what I'm saying, and a lot of people have the misconception, I believe, and I love how you bring that up. That and here you are 7 years later,
right?
And getting now out of debt this year. I think that's so cool, and it brings a realism too. It's like, hey, it's going to take time.
Well, I can add something even more cool to it, because not 2 years ago, the debt was almost as high as it had been 7 years ago. It had come down some. Yeah. And then last year, 2019 into 2020, it came down a fairly good amount. And then 2020, and the COVID comes along and it drives it back up again. And it was at that point, it was about 40% of where the top of it was.
Right.
So we climbed up to a really not a good, now maybe 35%, but it was definitely pretty high.
Right.
And last year was not a really good year for our gardening service business.
Right.
I mean, it was one of the worst ones we ever had. And we did have, some government support because everybody had the pandemic support. Yeah. That helped some. But we also had a smooth year. and I was telling this story to somebody I was talking to yesterday regarding the speaking business that I'm trying to put together. He was trying to give me some ideas, and I explained to him how, despite the fact that we had a down year, our crew, first of all, we had a great crew last year. We had the best crew we've ever had, and it's gotten better every year, and that's deliberately through our own planning that we've gotten there. But our overall sales compared to the previous year was down 60%.
Wow.
I mean, that's a huge drop.
Right.
Now, here's the part I can't quite explain. I have to explain it using law of attraction because I don't have another way to explain it. And I'm good at math. I'm really good at numbers. And I sit down and I work on the numbers. I say to myself, that can't be. That's my response.
Right.
But what happened was I found a way, and I've been focused on this for quite some time. How can I get it down to zero debt? I found a way to get to zero debt. And it was going to happen. Here's the really mind-blowing part. It was going to happen after we closed for the season.
Can you say that again?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to say that again. It happened after we closed for the season.
That's kind of crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, there's a whole set of financial reasons why it worked that way, but it was the last thing I would have predicted. I think that's what my point is. And the way I got there was by doing what you talked about, working on my mindset. That's what I've been working on all the 8.5 years I've been doing this show. And we made the story that shows up at the end of the ebook. By the way, the story is called Homes, Cars, and Cats. So that's the one that you want to look for. That particular story happened after I'd been doing the podcast for a year and a quarter.
Okay.
So it hadn't been very long into the journey.
Right.
And all the rest of this time, I've been just working on mindset as part of, doing the podcast and talking to some really wonderful folks like you every day. And that was one of my main tools for staying in a better mindset, getting into a mindset that was a better one, and then staying there. But it was not the only tool. I mean, you mentioned affirmations. I was doing affirmations. I was also doing something that Abraham talks about. And this is something I want to kind of get into a little bit today. Affirmations are great in that they help you change the way you think about stuff, right? They kind of put you into a more positive mindset. But there's something even more powerful than that, because Abraham makes reference to the fact that you need to change your story, because we have certain stories that we're constantly replaying in our heads, or we're telling our friends about, or their family. It's always, it's the complaint festival, right? Well, Jimmy's doing this all day long, and now the neighbors are on.
It's our excuses.
It's all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a story. Yeah.
So you want to change that story around. And so what we do, most of us in the conscious creator communities, we use affirmations to try to change the stories around. But what's even better is actually telling a complete new story. And I've been experimenting with that. And first of all, it's pretty challenging because you're creating something that doesn't exist. You're writing fiction. And you're writing the fiction. But I think the hardest part is overcoming the idea that it has to be the exact story the way it's going to come out. Because you feel like you're screwing up if you don't write the right story. And you have to kind of get over yourself on that one. Just say, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you're telling a new story that feels better. And if it turns out that you actually hit that story, so much the better. But the point is, you want to tell the full story. Why is the full story so important? I think it's so important because unlike an affirmation, affirmations, if you're working at them, you can feel them, which is, as Dan Mangana points out, it's not really an affirmation unless you're feeling it. If you're just thinking it, it really isn't it isn't working much as an affirmation. But when you work at it as a storyline, as a complete storyline, the feeling is so much more powerful because it feels more real.
Right.
Even if it's very fictional at first, so it feels very unreal. No, there's no way. That's just I'm lying to myself when I'm telling myself that story. But the fact is, if we're coming up with a storyline, a complete story, not just an affirmation or a series of affirmations, so that there's a new tale that we're telling to ourselves about what's happening in our lives and where our lives are going and where they've been and what changes we're making and so forth, that actually becomes much easier from my perspective, to tie into emotionally, to feel it, to really feel it, and to not just feel it emotionally, but also to feel it tangibly, tactilely, as if you could actually touch it, as you could actually see it and hear it and smell it and so forth. So I'm still experimenting with this. I'm still playing with it. Have you ever worked with trying to create a complete new storyline for yourself in the sense of
I
an
have.
affirmation? Well, how'd
It's
that
been
work out for you?
so it's been good, and also what it's done for me too is it created or really solidified some future goals.
Mm-hmm.
But the trick is, we talk about it, but also the trick is when you're writing the story, it's writing the story like the stuff, writing it like it's already happened.
Right.
So, if I was to talk about my future 5 years from now, what do I want that to look like? And then maybe where I say, oh my God, I didn't realize that, on year 10 of owning our home that we sold it for 2 times as much as we ever, we got a great deal, and that prompted a move to whatever state. And where, talking about things about income that were, maybe 3 times as much as we typically earn, and finding our dream home and what that looks like in detail.
Right.
So, saying, like maybe for me saying, hey, it was really fun to go down and go down on the dock and jump in the pontoon boat and take the kids tubing, or,
Exactly.
things like you have to really, like, you just did it, or you did it last week or whatever. So if you could travel to the future, live your ideal life, come back and write the story that you experienced, do that. Because saying, hey, we had a great time. It was, I was making this much a year. I didn't have to worry about, it was so freeing to do taxes and not have to worry about, oh my God, am I going to be able to eat because I got to pay income tax and the tax whatever,
Yeah, you don't want to go there. That'll kill you.
So, but all these stresses that you have now, or, the challenges that you're going through now, does that, you remember you own the creative wand, so to speak, this magic wand. So if you could create any life you ever wanted, time and money is no object. There's no limits. What is it within realistic terms? I mean, get it. But saying, what was something that's always been that a big goal of yours? Has it been to always own a home on the lake? Has it been to always drive a nice vehicle or a certain vehicle? Has it been to, I think a lot of people, be never have to worry about debt again, or find maybe something that brings in residual income, maybe having some type of business or something. So all of these things, however that looks for you, write and create the story that is happening for real in the timeline that you write about. And so you're writing about it. If you have kids, you talk about your kids. What are they doing in the future? Are they top of the valedictorians? Are they having grandchildren? Are they, what is that? Are they the next scientist? Are they on NASA or Mars? Be proud of your kids, be proud of yourself, and don't hold back, because I think you summed it up well, Walt, because it was something that when you're writing this, yeah, you are, in a sense, in the beginning, you're like, oh my God, I'm writing a fictional story. In the beginning, maybe that's true, but the thing is that everything starts off with a story. And it's like, you think back to, I go back to kindergarten or maybe even preschool, whatever. And of course, a big one is the teachers ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, kids go astronaut, firefighter, all these different ones,
all the
right?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff. And, if you were to go back to your kindergarten self and saying, what did you say that you wanted to be? Maybe you can't remember. That's okay. Or maybe you can. But the thing that I would share is, what would your kindergarten self say to you now?
Or perhaps another way to look at the same thing is to remember what it's like to be a kid when you're playing. You play being astronaut.
There was no boundaries.
And you have a box that's your spaceship, and you have some hat that you picked out of the closet that's your
Right.
helmet. Is it true? Is it a real helmet? Is it a real spaceship? Of course not. And the kid knows it's not, but it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter
It's
because,
imagination. It's playtime. That's all
well,
it
and the
is.
thing that I'm also getting to is I want to draw a correlation between, we're talking about this, what do you do for a living? There's a lot of kids that when they talk about this, it gets them excited. That gets Walt, you talked about, of course, a big one, of course, is astronaut or spaceman or whatever. And there's lots of play, there's lots of creativity. But if that continues on into adulthood, what happens? You take courses because that becomes a goal. I
That's
want to
right.
become an astronaut.
Yeah.
Well, what do you need to do to become an astronaut? And
Mhm.
then you find those things to do in order to become that. And you chase that dream and make it a reality. And that's how those dreams or that fiction, which started way back, because at that time it was just a story. It was
was
something
fiction.
that, yeah. But
You made it
now
up.
for some, they are living their quite literal dream. And for some, they get away from their dream, they come back to it, whatever. And sometimes it takes a little bit of coming back, or things happen in their life. But what I want to share is, again, get creative, because you create your reality.
And
But
you can't
kids
create
are
it wrong,
ones,
by the way. That's another thing. You can't
yeah,
create it wrong. That's
man,
something that I really stumbled on early on, is thinking, well, what if I screw it up? It doesn't matter.
yeah,
Anything you come up with is not going to be wrong,
yeah,
because heck, you can always modify it. It's not
right.
like once you've said it, you're locked in for the rest of eternity. No, that's not the way it
Right,
works.
right.
We're constantly changing our minds about stuff. We're saying, well, okay,
I
well,
know.
I got the yacht. Now I want to go for the steamboat. I
Well,
mean, it
right. And
just
it's like, or the aspect of, or to be in a position to buy a yacht, but then maybe when you get in that position saying, I really thought I wanted a yacht,
yeah.
but it's like, the more I do research on them, I would actually rather own a plane, because
Mhm.
then, maybe it's because of, logistic or whatever your reasoning is. And it's like, okay, well, you're free to change your mind if you
That's
want to get a
right.
plane instead, whatever.
So you're not
Go get
locked
a,
in.
yeah. So go chase your dreams, go do it. So whether that's a job or a purchase or finances, whatever that is,
By the way,
go.
you mentioned something else too. When you mentioned maybe the dream is being on a lake and having a pontoon boat and taking the kids
Yeah,
out
yeah,
tubing, right? When you
yeah.
were saying that, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, this is a great segue, because my parents lived on a lake for a short time with a
Really?
pontoon boat,
Wow.
and we got to go pontooning and
Oh
jet
man.
skiing
Yeah.
and water skiing and all kinds of stuff. It was wonderful. But it also has another side benefit that I'd forgotten about, which is really important. When you're learning what your story is going to be, when you're creating it,
Yeah.
so to speak,
Yeah.
use stuff from your past that you like. One of my favorite mental images is the image of my father standing on the dock while we're coming in on the pontoon boat, waving hello to us. It's an
Right.
enduring message. It just sticks with me. I mean,
Yeah.
my dad's been passed. He passed what was it, 13 years ago.
Well,
So it's been a
another
while, but
thing with that, Walt, though, is what that also does when you connect to those moments in time. You're really drumming up a lot of emotional, right? All these, it
exactly.
could be smells, it could
Yep.
be everything from, you're watching this proverbial, family film festival, so to speak, of these memories in your head, but also bringing up all those emotions, like how you felt at that moment, like just the
And
day
that's why
out
it's
on the
my that's my
sun,
favorite
and
memory.
yeah,
That literally is because I have so much love attached to seeing my dad standing. I'm not really good at imaging in my head.
yeah, yeah,
I've talked about that before. That one's a fairly clear image. I can see my dad. He's got his plaid shirt on with his beige pants and his belt. He had this hat that it was kind of made out of straw, but it's more like a more traditional businessman's type of hat
sure,
with
like a
with a
fedora,
white
yeah.
trim on it. I can see the whole thing, and I can just see him. He's waving to us. He's smiling. I and I mean, that is the most potent message for me. Just
Right.
having that thing. So when I include that in the story, because I do want to go back on a lake. In fact, I'd like to go back to that particular lake. It was a wonderful lake, and make that part of my life again. That's a part of my story. That's the part that I pull in.
Right.
So use the stuff from your past that you like, not the stuff that you don't like. That throw that stuff away. But the stuff that has really strong meaning for you, make that part of the story.
Yes.
Doesn't matter that it was in the past; it could be part of the future.
Well, another thing, it's interesting. We talk about lakes, right? So my wife and I, well, really our whole family, one of our big things is to live on the lake as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, growing up in northern Minnesota is kind of natural, land of 10,000 lakes, right?
Absolutely, yes.
But also to open it up as part of it as a healing center, not only for veterans, but really people that need, there's a healing quality about water and something about the solitude. But what I'm getting at is every time I go to the lake during the summer, and I don't live on the lake now, I live in town or city. But every time I go and you feel the water, the sand, or you smell the smells, you hear, the loons, everything. If you've ever been, all these different things that bring back all the emotional ties, the things that feel good for you, it solidifies and confirms everything, and it brings it all back to center. And for me, at least, it's just like, yep, I want it tomorrow. I wanted it yesterday, right?
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, what do we need to do? And we still talk about that. What do we need to do to move forward to make what we want a reality?
Well, and that's part of what my story is in terms of paying the debt off, because I knew where I wanted to be, and I would even envision getting my credit card statements, and they all were zeroed out, zero balance, $0, $0, $0. And I just kept on that one. I have to attribute it to that. That more than anything else is what is making this year possible. And I've already zeroed a couple of them so far. And it's like, oh my God, I don't owe any more money on that credit card. Like, what the heck? I'm not used to this. This is new. And it's great. It's a great feeling to just, oh, wow, it's been zero. But that for the longest time, it wasn't zero. For the longest time, it was, pretty large numbers. And I had to imagine. I had to just stick with the imagining and telling the story and feeling good. So I guess that's what I'm saying is stick with that story. Stick with telling that story over and over again, because I did. And yes, I was taking steps along the way. I mean, I was focused on finding ways to, wherever I could, I paid down a little bit extra here, a little bit extra there, and looking for any kind of path that I could follow that would get me to the point where I'm paying it all down. And I'll tell you, Dean, I was as surprised as anybody when I figured it out this past November. I kind of did a little projection and realized, oh my God, I could be out completely by May. And that's the path I'm on right now. And it's holding perfectly true to form. I mean, so that's the best thing you can do. Like you said it at the very beginning, it's the mindset. You really need to work on that mindset starting right now. By the way, this mindset thing is also really key to your concern about health. That's something else I wanted to bring up. She was expressing concern that, do you see something bad about my health? That's basically what she was asking. She didn't say it that way, but that's what it added up to. And it's really important to remember, all health issues start in your mind. They do not start in the body. That's where they show up, but that's not where they start. They all start based on mindset.
That's why the name, if you break down the word disease,
dis-ease.
It's dis-ease.
That's right.
It is basically the kind of like a roadblock for energy, and where energy gets stuck within the body. And so you're absolutely right. Well, I wanted to share something. This goes right along with the aspect. I ripped off my vision board, but don't worry. Because I was like, oh my God, this is last year's anyways. I got to do a new one for this year. But I had it on last year, and I've been having this, and basically you can't read it backwards, but I'm holding this up, and it's a handmade check. So I had it on, and it was two, and I made it out to myself.
Right.
And the amount was $1 million. And then the memo was for services rendered. And then of course, who signed it was the universe.
Right.
And so I was like, why not, why not say that, we talked about your worth, right? And saying, hey, like making or envisioning, bringing in that abundance. Now, a great abundance game, if you want to have fun with it, like reality, is if you have old checks laying around, or even just an old checkbook register, and I know you can just get generic ones online, or whatever, take a piece of paper and make a ledger.
Yeah, most bank branches have them now because they don't use them very much, so they're just kind of sitting around.
Is start off, and basically what it is, I think you get so much a day in theory. So you start off with, I think it's $1,000.
$1,000, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and every day, and you have to spend it. You can't spend it on bills. And I believe you can't spend it on other people. You got to spend it on yourself or things that you want or do.
I'll tell you, if having played that game, you actually want to lose those rules, because it gets to the point where you run out of ideas. You need to have them in order to spend it on.
Well, and that was the thing, is that, I did it years ago, and we actually had old checks. We had old checkbooks, and registers and all that. And, you went through, really, I had to start like a list, like, what do I even want to spend? It's almost not even fun anymore. I felt like I was back in the military, because I used to do supply, and I used to do purchasing. And I'm like, oh my God, it feels like I'm purchasing for the government again. And I was like, how about, I don't know, 10, I don't know, kayaks or something, like, yeah, that'd be kind of fun.
By the way, you left out a key piece. You mentioned how it's a $1,000 initial deposit, but what happens is each day, the deposit increases. In fact, it doubles each day.
Yes.
So the next day it's a $2,000 deposit, and then it's a $4,000. Depending which. Well, actually, the way I did it was doubling it. So 2,000, 4,000, 8,000. So it really goes up.
And
quickly.
You're supposed to, each day, you're supposed to
spend all of
the
it. Entire
amount, not like, all of it. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll save some and then I'll make a big purchase. No. You spend it all. Like
to experience in your mind the spending of these large amounts of money. That's the whole purpose of the game.
And after a while, it just, you start
when you get up to like $50,000, $100,000 a day, you start saying, okay, I bought everything. What else do I need to buy?
Yeah. I was like, and then after a while, I was like, I don't want anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I just give this money away? Like, I was like, and I was like, I get it that I could use this money in a totally different way, because the rest of this stuff is just stuff. And, or we talked about like changing your mind. And so I would actually start doing research on the things that I really maybe wanted. Maybe it was like a pretty cool fishing boat or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be like, no, I don't know if I want that now, or whatever. I'd rather maybe just have an old beat up 14-foot Lund fishing boat with a 25 horse Mercury on it, instead of something big and fancy, or whatever the case was. But it is a very profound exercise. And what I would share is it does open up avenues of manifestation. And really, again, it is solidifying the mindset of abundance and taking away the scarcity mindset that shows up so many times when it comes around money.
It's a great point. That mindset is critical, and it's so easy to fall into that scarcity mindset.
Yes.
By the way, it's an interesting point about the universe check that you wrote, because Damon Gain actually has the flip viewpoint on that. He doesn't like that at all. And when we talked about it, I realized that what he doesn't like about it is what is so often lacking, that I'm sure you actually do, that makes it a non-issue. And that is, you actually feel it. You feel like it's real. But his point is, if you turn that into, well, that's not real, that could never happen, you just have reversed the whole thing.
Right.
You have now turned an attraction mindset into a repulsion mindset.
Repulsion.
Yeah. Which is a really valid point. So when you're going to do any of these games, it's important to kind of throw yourself into them and really imagine and pretend that it's happening, so you can feel it, so it can be part of your current experience in your mind and in
Right.
whoever you're playing the game with. It's all, that's the other thing. It's great to play these games with somebody else, the checkbook game especially.
Right.
Louise and I played. I mean, you're supposed to do it like every day. You do a deposit.
Yeah.
We did continuous deposits in one day.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, and literally in about a half an hour, we were gasping for breath trying to figure out what to buy because it had incremented up so much. Well, we already have the house, that's already paid off, and we got the cars, we got 2 cars, we got multiple boats, we got jet skis for everybody, we've got a lake house. What else are we gonna buy? We got to figure out what to do with this next 150,000. I mean, it was crazy.
Well, and the other piece is too is like we even got to the point where like I started asking my wife, I was like, well, what did you buy? I don't want to double up and have extra stuff. I was like,
right.
And that was me. So she was like, well, that's your money to spend. I was like, yeah, but I was like, if we're doing this for real, I was like, I really don't want to buy multiple, like, so if you're going to buy a couple jet skis and we don't want more than 2 or whatever, I don't want to end up like, who wants like 4 gargoyle statues, right?
But it really brings up this stuff. That's what's so effective about the game. I mean, this basically, you had this limitation going on in your mind, and so it brought out the limitation. Playing a completely fictitious game.
Right.
But the limitation came up anyway. How many of these limiting beliefs do we wish that we could pull up? Well, guess what? They come up because you're playing the game as if it was actually happening.
But then you work through them too and saying, okay, now there's a hanger there, like, right? There's an emotional hanger. And saying, why is it? And so if we choose, then we can, and if we're self-recognizing, then we can be like, hey, and that's the same with health. This is transcribable, the same with health. You can write the story about how you want your health to look like, how you want to feel, how do you want to go run a 10K? Do you want to run a marathon? Do you just want to be able to move without pain in the morning? Do you want to, without being nauseated?
Right.
Those types of things. So, so many other people take, how do I want to say, so many other people out there that are struggling at times in their health. And there's some of us that are not in the same boat physically as other people. And so, we may not realize where they are, but at the same time, understand that we can change it regardless of,
it can take some work too.
Control.
I mean, it does. Let's be honest, especially if you're dealing with something chronic and there's pain involved, where just the pain doesn't go away. Then that's a real challenge, but it's also a great opportunity to practice what we call the pivoting, right? That pivoting is basically, I've been focusing on X, which I don't like. I'm going to pivot my attention over to Y instead, which I do like. And when you're trying to do that, to get away from pain, that's pretty tough because the pain's still there. You still feel that pain, and your pain's saying, well, you can pretend that you don't have any pain right now, but guess what? Here's some pain for you to feel,
Feel.
So it's a challenge. It's not an easy pivot to make, but you know what? We can still do it. I
would share a personal journey with pain here for the past, I don't know, I want to say week or 2. Been dealing with lower back pain, right? And went to the chiropractor, all that great stuff. And it actually got worse before it got better. Actually the latter part of last week. And it got to the point where I could barely like get out of the bed or get barely. And the wife and my daughter were out of town for a dance competition. So it was just me and my son, my little guy. And so you still got a parent and, you still got a dog that you got to take care of. But one of the things that are real, and I was in pain and I get it, and trying to doctor at home. But one of the things that I remember thinking, and of course, my son's 10 and he was like, dad, and I was thinking, I could get mad right now because of the pain and whatever. But I was like, what I do have control over? How I show up in this moment, how I show up right now. And it doesn't mean that I'm not in pain. I recognize it. I get it. I get something that's wrong with my back. It's teaching me something. I get that as well. But one of the things is how I react and show up each day.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it doesn't mean that I'm not hurting and not in pain, but I was like, so a lot of times instead of maybe being super pissed off, so to speak, and be like, just letting the pain ruin the day, I would take more time, a little bit more time for me or whatever, and then talk to my son or whatever the case is, saying, what, instead of speaking in maybe anger out of, the pain, so to speak. But yeah, so interesting. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't mean that you're not in pain or not dealing with something very serious. But at the same time, again, we have the ability to how we show up at each and every moment in our life.
And by the way, if you're not experiencing chronic pain, but you're concerned about health issues, consider yourself lucky because you don't have to deal with making huge pivots in the middle of pain, which is a whole lot more difficult. If you aren't feeling pain, it's a whole lot easier to make your pivots now. So take advantage of it. This is the time to do it because, hey, if you're not experiencing a lot of overt symptoms and they're not in the way of making that mental shift over to what you want instead, that's the time to do it because there's nothing stopping you. You don't want to wait until it's kind of like the analogy about the boulder rolling down the hill. The best time to stop the boulder is at the top of the hill as it just started rolling. You don't want to try to stop it at the bottom of the hill when it's got its full momentum going. That's when you get run over. So take advantage of the fact that you're in a better place than many people are and shift the mindset. Start thinking about what it's like to be healthy. And we often think about stuff in terms of, well, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to have this condition. I don't want to get that disease. But what's it like to be healthy? That's a different way of thinking about things. When you're thinking about what it's like to be healthy, for me, now this is just my way of saying it. Healthy means I can do whatever I want. I can eat what I want. I can go where I want. It means I'm not tied to medications and doctor visits and all of that. I just live and I live my life joyfully. That's what health means to me. Health means feeling good. Health means looking in the mirror and feeling good about myself. Health means that every moment of every day, I feel younger again. That's health for me. What is health for you?
I would have to concur everything that you just said. And the other thing that I would say is also the ability or the knowing within me that my mind state or my emotional state is calm and steady, and where I feel that I have confidence and control over who I am as an individual and my emotions. Not where I feel like, maybe I'm out of control or anything like that. So emotionally, mentally, the mind, body, spirit connection, right? On all levels, where I just feel happy and healthy. I just feel, I guess normal, what is normal anymore, but I just, where there's no concerns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Life feels good. Life is good. That's really it. Life is good. Beautiful. Yeah. So anyway, Daniel, thank you for sending in Vickie's question, because obviously it gave us a lot of good stuff to talk about. And, Vickie, regardless of whether or not energetically you're at a space where it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of change going on, like Dean was saying, that can change on a dime. It really comes down to whether you're willing to do the work. And the work is changing mindset. And it is work, especially when you've got some momentum going the other direction, which you apparently do. You're going to have to, really make a commitment here. And it's going to have to be a daily commitment, but make it. Because, I mean, Dean, you and I both know when you make that commitment and stuff starts to change, it fuels you. Keeps you going. Absolutely. And that's what makes the whole thing work so well. So yeah, thank you very much for sending that in. And we encourage everybody else who might have been thinking about sending something in, take advantage of the LOA Today app. That's one of the things that's on there. There are two different forms. There's one for asking a question like Daniel did. There's another one for just sending in a general comment, talking about a previous show or suggesting a topic or something like that. But please take advantage of them and send them in, because we really love having these topics. They make our conversations so much more fun here on the show. Yeah. So please do that. And Dean, as usual, it's been great. I mean, I almost feel like we need to get you on like twice a week. I mean, we've had that a few times in terms of guest hosting and so forth, but we're to find a way to do that. But thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And thank you also. Thank you also to our podcast listeners, because without you, we wouldn't have a podcast. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today.
Have
Goodbye,
a great
everybody.
Week.